You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 105. Guys, we're going to be taking a deep look today at what it means to run your business in a way that is aligned with your true nature. And to help us with that, we're going to meet with Taylor Shuler. And are you ready for this? Taylor is a certified professional astrologer. Yeah, this one's a little different. Don't skip it. And stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. This is Wendy Pitts-Reeves, your host, and I am so happy to be hanging out with you here another day, another week here on the program. I've got something really, really juicy for you today. And I'm just going to tell you right now, some of you are going to roll your eyes at this. Some of you are going to lean in. All I want to do is encourage all of you to at least listen to it, because I bet you'll find that you learn a few things, either about yourself, about your business partner, about your colleagues, maybe even about your clients, that you're going to find really helpful. And my hope is that this will pique your interest into learning more. Today's guest is Taylor Shuler. Now, Taylor is someone I met in a group coaching mastermind that I'm a part of. And Taylor posted something at one point in one of our group discussions that caught my eye. So I reached out to her to get to know her a little bit better because I was really interested in what she had to say. She does a lot of different things, all basically centered on helping entrepreneurs connect with and learn about their true self. One of the things that Taylor said to me the first time we talked was that the real secret to success is making sure that you design a business or a practice that is in alignment with your true nature. And how do you do that? You look to nature for clues. So that's what we're going to do today, because Taylor, of many things that she's good at, she is a certified professional astrologer. And no matter what you think about astrology, whether you think it's actually real science, whether you think it is art, whether you think it is philosophy, whatever you think about it, there were some things she said today that were kind of amazing to me in how accurately they fit my own experience as a business owner over time. So I want you to enjoy this, and I want you to have an open mind, and if nothing else, just have some fun with it, right? So let me introduce you to Taylor a little more properly. So Taylor calls herself a regenerative business badass BFF. There you go. She coaches new, aspiring, and established entrepreneurs, helping them find and fulfill their purpose and build their business. And she talks about leveraging all the best tools from AI to your zodiac sign. But I know that she is into all things that have to do with your natural self. She studies human design. I think she's into biodynamics, permaculture, who knows what else, some of which I know something about, some of which I don't. She's a really interesting person, and I actually was quite blown away by how much she had to share today. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Ideal Practice. I'm so glad you're here. As you heard in the intro, we have a guest today we're going to talk about something that is completely different than anything I have covered yet in Ideal Practice. And some of you, I'm just going to tell you right now, some of you are going to roll your eyes at this. Some of you are going to lean into this. I encourage all of you to listen with an open mind, because I think it's going to be actually kind of illuminating That's my sense of where we're going to go today. So let me go ahead and dive in and bring in our guest. Let me say hi. Let me just say welcome to Taylor Shuler. Taylor, say hi.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Do you think I'm right about this? Is that the reaction I'm going to get from people?
Absolutely. And illuminating was such a beautiful word to use,
Well,
given what we're
that's
talking about.
indeed for real. That's true. How about that? Yeah. So I've already told them a little bit about where we're going in the intro, but let's let you kind of set the stage for us. Tell everybody what how who do you help and how do you help them?
Absolutely. So I help new, aspiring, and well established entrepreneurs in order to fulfill their purpose, to live a good life, right? And to build businesses that are regenerative. So, not just sustainable, but regenerative, which means holistic. You're thinking about the whole person, the
Mm,
community, the planet, in order to be happy, in order to be healthy, and in order to be successful.
that's a whole different take. I have actually not heard the term regenerative used before with business, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So say a little bit more about that. What is it like? I immediately think of renewal. Um, how is that different from sustaining over time? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
You're on it. So I have a background where I have a master's degree in cross-cultural and sustainable business management. So
Oh wow.
in my time in grad school, we were studying sustainable business. And by the time I got to the end of my program, writing my thesis, it wasn't just me. We all realized sustainable was really not the appropriate word because to sustain something is sort of like to survive something. And
Mm,
I think we've all heard this conversation of survival versus thriving.
yeah.
We want to have a good life. We don't want to just have a baseline life. And if we treat the planet, if we treat ourselves, if we treat each other the way that we have been, if we continue to do that, which is really the definition of sustaining something, is maintaining it over a long period of time, we'll deplete the planet, we're depleting ourselves. And really, over time, what that means is degradation. What we want to strive
Ah,
for is renewing, is giving back, is leaving a place better than we found it, is improving a relationship while we're in it, is improving ourselves from the work that we're doing. If you want to talk about these physics concepts of like things that are like entropy, really, like if
yeah.
something's spiraling inwards versus something spiraling outwards, we're sort of in that space of our energy spirals out and it
Mm.
never comes back to us. We want to do things where the work that we put into it spirals back and then gives back to us.
Oh
And not
wow, I
just
love
to,
that.
yeah, and not just to
Yeah.
ourselves, but thinking 7 generations into the future. And so
Uh,
we have to think about people from a health perspective, and there's many facets of health. We have to think about the planet from many different facets. And we need to think about how we treat each other. So, how are we being not just fair to each other, but good to each
mm,
other?
mm.
Holistic. So, that's the holistic perspective.
That's beautiful. I love the image of spiraling out as something you need to balance in a way, like that, because I do see that the way I went where I went with that in my head is that we give and give and give and give, but we don't get anything back. If we're not careful, if it's not a loop, right? And that when your business is something that is exciting, fulfilling, engaging, makes you like really does make you happy, genuinely happy, that naturally that feedback loop is going to come back to you in a way. I'm sure you
Exactly.
mean more than that, but that's how I took that. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that feedback loop, that's actually a term that we use a lot in some of the different theoretical frameworks that I use as the basis for the work that I do. Feedback loops are incredibly important.
Love it. Love it. So that's a perfect spot to set up where I want to go. So when I met you earlier, we talked on the phone a while back, and I wanted to hear more about what you do. So just to let everybody know, I met you in a large group coaching program that we are both in. And you had posted something in the forum with this group that caught my eye. And I'm like, this is different. Who is this person? What does she do? This is different. Um, when we talked before, we were talking about that you use a number of different ways of working to help people tune into and understand their natural self. And I just want to tell people something that you said to me that made an impression. It stuck with me. You said to me that day, just off the cuff, you said, if you want to be successful, being your natural self is the best way to do that. If you want to be successful, being your natural self is the best way to do that. And the way to figure out what that is to look to nature for the answer. So I want to talk about what it means to how we can understand our natural self, because from our conversation before, what I got from you was that when something doesn't feel good in your practice or in your business, there's a chance that that's because it's out of alignment with your true self, right? Am I getting this right so far?
Okay. You got it. You got it. Yeah.
And so for the purposes of our conversation today, in particular, I want to lean into the framework of astrology, which is completely different from the way we tend to talk about business. Talk to me before we get into that. Just talk to me about the concept of your natural self, your true self, and how that impacts your success as a business owner.
That's such a good question. What is the natural self? I think we're all going to have different answers, different points of view on that, which is part of it, right?
Yeah.
But the natural self that we can see in astrology that I'm referring to would be composed of more than just the personality components that you think of when someone thinks of astrology. When you think of astrology, normally two things come to mind: sun sign horoscopes that you read in the paper, and you're like, this doesn't apply to me. What is this? Which I've had that feeling most of my life as well. Still pretty much do, but I know how to read them now, which is different. And personality. Well, I don't feel like a Capricorn, or I'm really not, I'm not Scorpio at all.
Yeah.
So thinking about prediction, through those horoscopes, or thinking about personality and saying, and what people don't realize is the personality traits are on a spectrum, and it's way more than just your sun sign. We've got all of these planets. We've got different zodiac signs. And then there's different ways of reading. We call it the chart. Astrology is a language. And some of those natural self components are your energy cycle. So how much energy do you have on a foundational level versus throughout the seasons of our life, throughout the cycles of our life? How much energy do you have? Did you notice that as a child, you were very energetic or very sleepy, for example?
Okay.
Did you go through a period of school where you just like had your head on the desk, and it wasn't, we're all, teens are doing that anyway. All 12 to 19-year-olds are taking a nap anyway. It was sort of like unusual for your age group or something. Or, did you reach your 30s and it was sort of more challenging, but everyone else was having a great time, right? Why would it seem like you're suddenly out of sync with something, but you aren't? You're right on time. It's the world and the expectations that society has established for us, kind of put on us, that then we feel not okay or not good or not
out
natural
of sync in some way,
when really there's a whole reason for it. So our energy cycles are one, tendencies in your personality, interests that you might have, passions that you might have, gifts and talents that you have, the legacy that you want to leave, your dharma, if you've ever talked about that. That's something that we can talk about with astrology. I think it could be kind of dangerous to talk about karma, just because I don't think we have the greatest framework in our culture to understand it in a non-judgmental way that we can process it in a healthy way. If you do, that's great, but not everybody has that. So karma can be a little controversial to talk about with astrology, but there's so much there: your gifts, your talents, your energy, the work that you do in the world, the legacy that you want to leave, and just sort of like how you live life and why you want to live it, and how that could be in alignment with or not in alignment with society. It could be how you think, how you learn, what you like to read, or if you do or not don't. Are you the type of learner who wants to be really hands-on, or do you like to read and write? Or are you better at taking tests? Or, would you rather chat with folks? So there's so much, do you need more time to process? Are you sort of like, I don't want to say slower, but like, yeah, do you need a bit more time, or are you a really quick thinker? Do you put the pieces together? Sort of 20 steps ahead of everyone else.
So you're saying all of these are different aspects that astrology can help you understand about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are just some. I could keep going.
Well, I really want to start with kind of a high level view, and then I want to get into some specifics. So you just nailed it when you said, when most people think about astrology, they think about reading their sun sign in the paper, which is whatever day you were born, blah, blah, blah. I did that as a kid all the time. Of course I did that all the time. And that is so much more than that. And I think did you say astrology is a language? Is that what you said?
It is. It's a language.
So set us up. What the heck is astrology? And you just already started talking about why we should care, that understanding it can help us learn a little bit more about ourselves and our approach to things. But what is it? What is it really?
Yes. So astrology is, in a poetic sense, the way that the universe, God, deities, nature speaks to us. One way. It is a way of understanding ourselves and understanding the events around us. And in a practical sense, what astrology is knowledge that we have inherited through much difficulty, through much strife, through many challenges, through people who cared very deeply for this knowledge to be passed on because of its power, through many attempts to thwart that knowledge being passed on to us because of how powerful it is, to the point that it has actually been ingrained in us to not like astrology and to fight against us so that we can internalize our own oppression and fight our own liberation. So it's this system of knowledge. It's a language that you have to learn. So there's a language in nature, for example. Trees, leaves will turn brown when the roots don't have water. That's the tree speaking to you, I need water, right? That's a language. Body language, we have that. But the language, this is the language of the stars and how they geometrically align in the sky to quote unquote speak to one another. And you may have seen, there's 13 constellations, so astrology is not real. Well, here's why astrology is real. Astrology is real because our ancestors who ensured that we got this knowledge to the best of their ability, they understood the patterns of the earth. So not just the leaves that would turn brown and fall off, and that was a cycle. It was a language that described seasons. So they looked at the stars that aligned with the horizon certain times of year, and they realized that certain stars stayed fixed in the sky and other stars moved. And the stars that moved are planets. And the stars that stayed fixed helped them to understand the Nile was about to flood when the star Sirius is on the horizon in the summer, for example. So they were able to understand seasons and then associated certain zodiac signs or constellations that are aligned with the ecliptic, which is the path the sun travels in the sky. And they realized that these moving stars only go so far above or below the same basically path or what do you call it? The angle. There's an angle above the horizon.
Above the horizon, right.
Where we'll see the sun. So the planets will only be within that portion of the sky. And that is where the zodiac signs align on the ecliptic, the path that the sun travels and the path that the stars, the planets travel through. And so a certain time of year, the fixed stars come up above and below the horizon, and the sun will be aligned with a certain constellation that's fixed that you can't see when the sun is there because the sun is blocking it out, but other constellations become visible. And so then they said, okay, well, when this constellation is on the eastern horizon before the sun rises, we know it's whatever time of year. And so then they realized when you can see constellations, the sun is about to be there or just was there, depending if it's sunrise or sunset when you're looking at the dark night sky. And that's how we figured out what the zodiac signs are. And based on those seasons that we have, fall, summer, spring, winter, they started to assign attributes to each zodiac sign.
Okay.
So there's 12 zodiac signs that we use, even though there are 13 constellations on the ecliptic and many more constellations in the sky.
Right.
And there are 3, just like we have 3 months, right? Every season. So there's 3 signs for every season as well.
Yeah.
And they have modalities. And then every sign also has an element to it. So we have the cardinal signs that start off the season: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. That's the first one. It starts off the season. It has this energy of starting things, of initiating things, of moving and going. And if you think about people of those signs, they kind of have that quality, whether they're the Cancer paternal person, maternal, paternal person, the Libra who's initiating a relationship, the Aries who's being themselves, or the Capricorn who's sort of the manager, the boss at work, and the leader. Then you've got the fixed signs come next, because that's the middle of a season. It's going to feel like that season. And so the fixed signs, you have Taurus and Leo and Scorpio and Aquarius. And those people may get those personality traits of being like kind of set in their ways, because the season is set in how it's operating.
I'm laughing thinking about my favorite Taurus on the planet, who happens to be my mom, who probably won't hear this.
Yeah. And likes the things, her creature comforts, right?
Yeah. All I have to say to people, she's a Taurus, and it explains everything. Right. That's very funny. There you go. That's very funny.
And then we have the mutable signs when the seasons start to change. The mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pices, they are the signs that end a season. And so they change. And so there's this mutability, this changeability built into the sign, because it's going to feel a little bit like last season and a little bit like next season. And so they may have a lot of interests. They may be not so fixed, right? The fixed signs are fixed in what they do. They know what they like. Geminis might have a huge book collection of lots of different books. They might have a huge music collection of lots of different music. They might have lots of different jewelry, lots of different talents, multiple homes, multiple careers, multiple of something. Sagittarius, lots of knowledge, lots of travel. Pisces, that's a little different. Very creative. You know, maybe you can't pin them down. Like you can't pinpoint what they like, or, you know, how they're going to feel today. Yeah. It's just a little different energy. And the Virgos can really spread themselves too thin, because they have this heart that gives and gives and gives, and they may not be giving back to themselves. So I'm sure your audience has some kind of Virgo, if not in your sun, your moon, or rising, maybe a Virgo in signature or Cancer signature, often the healing and caring professions.
Yes, I bet you money. Yeah.
Cancerian.
Yeah. So when I started my group practice, you'll love this. There was a group of 4 of us that sort of initially kind of launched it. It was mine. They came and joined me, and we sort of gelled as a practice. And we had a feng shui consultant come to help us get our building off to the right start in this brand new place that we were in. And while she was talking to us, we got into astrology, and we had a Scorpio, a Pisces, a Cancer, and a Capricorn. And she looked at the Capricorn and said, what did she say? She said something like, she's the goat. She's going up the mountain, whether you come with her or not. And I got so tickled at that, because over the next 10 or 20 years, however long we worked together, there were so many times when that came back to my mind, because that's exactly how it was. She was the goat. She was going up the mountain. We could come or not. Didn't matter. She was going.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Love it. What a hoot. Yeah. So that's really interesting. I actually have never heard anything. I've never really understood the cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. That's new to me. So,
yeah. And I'll just say about that, because some people might go look at the calendar and say, Taylor, that's not true. Pisces season is this when it happens. This is what's going on. Well, what I can say is that the astronomical reason of that you can Google. I won't spend time getting in the weeds about it, but look up the precession of the ages, and it accounts for like a 2-degree difference a 1 degree movement in the sky through the zodiac every 72 years or so. And so that's why we have the age of Pisces, which is when Jesus walked the earth, apparently, and why people say we're moving into the age of Aquarius is because the time that the spring equinox happens is moving through the zodiac, because there's 360 degrees of the zodiac with 365 days, Earth days, but we also have leap years. So it's all just a mathematical, astronomical calculation of time.
That makes my little social worker head just spin out of control.
Like, for those people doubting and skeptical out there, I'm like, okay, but look up the precession of the ages and then come back to me.
So one of the things I was hearing you say is you were sort of, and that was a beautiful, beautiful foundation here. I thank you so much for laying that out. And I know there's a lot more, but one of the ways I was hearing that as you were describing how this kind of came to be, how the art and science of astrology came to be, was that people were paying attention to nature, watching the stars, watching the heavens. And, we don't live that way today nearly enough. Like, we're all tuned into our electronics, and it is really something to get kids. If I can get a group of teenagers outside under a night sky without their phones, it's a big experience for them because they're just not used to seeing that kind of stuff. But down through the ages, of course, that's exactly how people lived. And so what I heard you say was that they began to notice patterns in what the sky looked like and what was happening around them in nature. And then grew from there into this pretty comprehensive whole thing. So that's super interesting. Tell me about the elements, because that's how I think about signs: water signs, air signs. Talk about this is what did you say a minute ago? You said the attributes of the signs. That's what you were talking about. Yeah.
Yes. They have these qualities to them. So they have elemental qualities. The modalities is what we were talking about before: cardinal, fixed, immutable. So in Western astrology that comes from the Hellenistic or Greek tradition, which comes from ancient Egypt, which, goes back even further. Sure. In Chinese astrology, they have, and in some Asian astrology traditions, they have 5 elements. But what I mainly use is Western, because that's what I've studied the most and know the most. We have 4 elements. So we have fire, air, earth, and water. And every zodiac sign has both a modality and an element to it. And so that we get a mix of everyone. We have a fixed sign that's fire, air, earth, and water. We have a cardinal sign that's fire, air, earth, and water, right? One of each. And then we have a mutable sign, one fire, air, earth, and water. And so this was the pattern that when I was reading sun sign horoscopes, I did not understand. I didn't understand that one was this cardinal of starting things, or movable is another word that Christian astrologer William Lilly used a few hundred years ago. I didn't understand that there was fire, or what that would even mean, or any of these things. And so once you put these together, you get these patterns. And to your point, this came that we were talking about before, is like, this came through our ancestors. And if you believe in inheriting patterns, behavioral patterns from your parents that you want to not repeat with your children, for example, or that you're repeating in the workplace, and that's why you're a therapist and why clients
I'm going to think my people get this. I think this is something we're all going to understand. Yeah.
It's like, these are the subconscious patterns. Earth, the sun rising every day, the moon being full. These are the patterns that are ingrained in us, in our DNA, in our cells, on a very deep subconscious level, because for millennia, we were living by these patterns. And it's only been the past couple of decades and maybe 150 years since the industrialization of the world and the globalization of the world that we haven't been living this way. So to your question about the elements. So the fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And finally, the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
A fire sign, think about the element fire. It's hot, it needs oxygen, it needs air. So air and fire are actually very complementary. If you are an Aries, you might attract a lot of Aquarians. And even if it's not the sun signs, could be the moon signs, it could be your Venus sign if we're talking about love. And Aries, someone with Venus, the planet of love and relationships and beauty and aesthetics, in Aries is going to really get along well with someone who has Venus and Aquarius, an air sign, because the air is feeding the fire.
Okay.
Right. So just you can just think about these very literally. What does it feel like to be around fire? It's hot. We're sitting around the fire. We're sitting around the bonfire. This is the place where people would gather, attracted like a moth to a flame. It's that sort of energy. So you can get very metaphorical with it. Just really feel into these elemental signs. Fire can dance, right? So Aries is the cardinal, movable, starter, fire starter. So you're going to start the fire. They're going to initiate. They're going to have that energy. They're going to have that motivation. They're going to have that spark. Leo is a fixed fire sign. So Leo is going to be the fire tender, right? They're the comedian who's standing on stage who wants to keep the laughter going, right? They're the entertainer. They're the leader. They're this charismatic leader who's like, got to keep feeding the flame, right? We have someone who's been in prominent power in the United States over the past many years who is a Leo and just went from TV to more TV and wants to keep feeding the flame.
Okay.
So then we have Sagittarius, which is mutable. And it's sort of like, okay, well, people are a little hot over here, so let's change it. Let's respond. And, okay, let's give it more now. And maybe we don't need fire anymore, so the fire might die down. And Sagittarius is this one that can move around, right? It's the traveler, the philosopher, the attorney, the person who's really intelligently responding to things. And so fire is inspiration, it's motivation. It's this thing where it's like, where did that come from? Where did that inspiration come from? But it's that fire. And so the good thing about it is it gives us light. It illuminates things. It gives us passion. It gives us fight. It gives us this knowledge. So not just like inspiration as in motivation, but inspiration as in knowledge that kind of comes from you're not sure where. And almost psychic, but that's more of a water sign thing that intuitive to a certain extent. But water signs are more emotionally intuitive and fire signs are more intellectually intuitive, I'd say.
So as you're talking about this, I want to bring this back to business and practice, like how this would impact you as a business owner. And I immediately, as you were describing, I hadn't thought about the cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs under each of those. It's really interesting looking at that combination, because you're right, that does change the way it is. And I had a client who was an Aries that I learned a lot from, and I have a good friend who was a very active community leader who was a Leo. And as you're describing those two characteristics, I'm thinking that fits perfectly, because in one is all about starting something and kind of lighting a fire to motivate people to action, an activist, a very, very strong activist. In the other case, I have often been struck by this friend of mine who's a Leo, and that she keeps going when I'm thinking, aren't you tired? Don't you want to quit? Like she's done so much in her life, and there is no quitting in place. Like it is astonishing to me how much she continues. And I can see how that would. So as a business owner, it makes sense to me that one of these, as a practice owner, is going to be all excited about trying something new. The quick start person who's got a new program, a new idea, a new way of doing business, wants to launch a new program. And then the Leo is going to be the one who wants to sustain what you've grown and make it stronger, right? All the time. That's really interesting. Okay.
You got it, Wendy. It's making me so happy to hear this reflected back. It's like, what kind of business should I start and why is it challenging for me? Well, if you're trying to sustain something as an Aries, you have to really, really care about it and have a lot of other fixed signs and fixed signatures in your chart for that to work, because you're going to be the person who wants to be the orientation almost. You want to be the orientation leader and get people going and get them fired up and have one event. You're not going to be the one who wants to be with people for like 10 years. You want to do your own thing, and what you're doing is going to change.
Yeah. And you'll blow it up. If you're not careful, I'm thinking you'll blow it up.
Yeah.
just so that you have something new to do. I also, as you were thinking about, and I do want to go through each one of these, as you were talking about the fact that fire and air work together, like in nature, fire and air work together. I immediately thought of the visionary and what is it? I never can remember the term. What is the term that's from Rocket Fuel? Integrator from the book Rocket Fuel. The basic principle of that book is that a lot of successful businesses are started by a visionary, but the only reason they work is because an integrator comes along who implements the ideas. Like I got ideas all day long, but I don't really want, I need somebody else to do it. Right.
Yes.
So a fire sign who is especially like an Aries, someone like that, who's good at getting something off the ground is going to need perhaps, I don't
Yes.
know, a water sign who can, not water, an air sign who can take those ideas and feed them and put them out there and make them work. It's basically your number one and your number two in a successful business.
There you go.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's super cool. So talk to me. So I wanted to do this. I wanted to go through each one of the elements because of my very limited amateur understanding. That's the part that my brain can make sense of. And I'm thinking people might be a little bit familiar with that. So fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius.
Yes.
Okay. And then where do we want to go next? Do you want to go to Earth next or do you want to go to air next?
Yeah, let's go to Earth next. And the one thing that I'll say, since we were just talking about fire and air, there's one more layer here. There's a couple more, but I'm going to give you one more layer just because you brought up, and I said, fire and air work together well. Well, why? They are what we call masculine signs. If you're not comfortable using gender, which I use as a concept, I'm not literally talking about sex. I'm talking about gender. They're different concepts. I have a background in sociology. I feel very comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
So masculine is going to be that outward giving energy. And so both the air and the fire have that. And now we're talking about earth, and then we'll talk about water. Those are the feminine signs, which has that receptive, more inward, internal energy. And so obviously we need both, but that's just the short version of why they work together. They have the same energetic signature.
Makes sense.
And geometrically, when you put them in a circle, when you put these 12 zodiac signs in a circle and you draw geometric shapes between them, you will see 60 degrees and 120 degrees between either masculine and feminine signs or the same element. And that is considered to be beneficial. Benefic aspects is what we might call them. Very helpful. So that's a little bit more. So now earth signs, we've got Taurus and Virgo and Capricorn. So you mentioned the Taurus being kind of stubborn.
Yeah.
What does earth do? Well, you're talking about putting things into practice, making them real. That's what earth does. Earth grounds us. That's what we say when we think of earth. Like, we are on earth. We are grounded here on earth.
Yeah.
We are planted in earth. Earth is the physical material you can feel and touch and hold and crumble in your hands, right? It's the soil that can be moist. It can be dry. It can be sand. It is something material and something tangible. And that is the most important thing for earth signs, is that, especially when you're making a decision, this is one thing I love to talk about with my clients. If you're a business owner or just an individual, when you're making a really big decision, you want to look at your rising sign or ascendant sign, which you can look up, and,
we should tell people how to get there, how to figure that out.
We'll talk about that. Material security, financial material security is going to be the bottom line for you. For fire signs, your bottom line is, does it give me the power and the freedom that I need to feel good in my life? So earth signs want to make sure the bills are going to be paid. There's going to be food on the table, a roof over my head, and enough clothes for me and the baby. And if medication is needed, we've got it.
Yeah.
Bottom line. So the Taurus is the carpenter, the farmer, the chef, the cook. They may be very
realtors.
Yes. Taurus and Cancer have that in mind with the realtors. Absolutely. And they, fashion designers, clothing designers, they might like the finer things, luxury. They might be in bullion, right? I had a relationship with someone who was a Taurus, and He was on the bullion thing. He was like, we've got to get silver. We have to get gold. It was like,
because it
you
was
can't have
safer.
money. Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
have it tangible and it needs to be shiny and from the earth.
Yeah.
Um,
Huh.
so food, money, and then the things that feel good, taste good, like nice
Very
clothes,
sensual. Very sensual.
sensual. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're concerned with that and the basics of that and getting it done. And they'll work hard and long because Taurus is a fixed sign. They're not going to give up. So that's where the stubborn comes from, is the material in the long term. You
Mm-hmm.
combine them, earth
Mm-hmm.
and fixed, you get that real persevering, we could say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then we have Virgo. Virgo is a mutable earth sign. And Virgo,
Was Taurus the cardinal in that one?
Taurus is fixed, actually.
Taurus
Capricorn is
is
going to be the
fixed.
cardinal. So you see how it moves. It's not
Ah,
the
okay.
same. So Taurus season comes after Aries season. And then Virgo season comes after Leo season. And Capricorn comes after Sagittarius.
Okay.
So that's why you have one of each element in each modality all mixed up. You don't have any overlapping.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So Virgo is a mutable sign, meaning it has a little bit of everything in it.
Dexterity. So
Okay.
very analytical with the material thing. So they can take material things and manipulate them, which you can then turn into analysis, discernment, a skill, right? So the ability to manipulate physical material is then a skill. It's a trade. It's a vocation. I have a goal in mind, and it's not just the physical structure. It is the maintenance, the mutability, the thing that's changing, and being able to be concerned with the sustainment, almost regenerative, but that's more Scorpio, of the health of a person, of the growth of a life. So a lot of Virgos are in the healing professions, the teaching professions, the caring professions, because they have this knowledge that is to be passed on to future generations. So it's this thing that is constantly changing and moving, but it's very tangible at the same time. So
I was thinking very hands-on.
hands-on.
It's interesting as you're describing these different characteristics of these different types. I'm thinking of the Enneagram instinctively, which is really funny. As you were talking, what was it that just struck me? Oh yeah, I'm thinking that like with the Taurus, I was thinking about a 6 on the Enneagram, which is they manage fear by having a plan B, C, D, E. Like they're the ones who are like they're prepared for anything, which goes back to making sure you've got food, clothing, shelter, transportation, all those kinds of things. And with a Virgo, as you're talking, I'm thinking about being very, what was it be? I'm going to show my ignorance here. I'm thinking like they're very hands-on. They want to have their hands in the mix, working with something, which is more of a 5 or maybe a 1. I'm not really sure about that. But as I'm just thinking about there's overlap here in how these personalities work together. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. And I remember
Yeah.
when we first talked, I was like, the reason that I like astrology is because there are different possibilities and different interpretations. We all have free will. So I don't practice astrology that this will happen to you, a deterministic fate
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
It's like you have a choice to be on a spectrum. So you don't have to be a nurse. You don't have to be a teacher. Actually, a lot of accountants, bookkeepers, people who are good with that numbers, tax people can have a lot of Virgo in their chart because of that analysis. Herbalists. So yeah, they do want to have their hands in something very tangible.
And that's a one thing on the Enneagram. So like lots of structure, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. Very analytical, very logical, that kind of stuff. And I was thinking as you were talking about something you said you were about what they build or create or sustain or something that this I was thinking bank accounts. Make sure their bank accounts are working. That's really good. That's really interesting. Yeah. Okay. And then Capricorn? No, yeah, Capricorn. Yeah. That was the other one, right? Yeah.
So Capricorn is the cardinal earth sign. And so if you're starting something that is tangible, material, the other thing, so I said that, the masculine feminine was last. Not quite. There are other things. And so what we're seeing is the progression through the zodiac, right? So you start with Aries and you work your way through to Pisces, and Capricorn, even though, Aries was cardinal and now we're talking about Capricorn being cardinal. Aries is the first sign, if you want to give them numbers. Capricorn's the 10th out of 12. There's a
Okay.
maturity there, right? Virgo is going to be sixth out of the zodiac. So there's even more maturity than that first sign of Aries. If you add maturity to Earth and to starting something, you get a big structure that can move. And what is
Mm.
that? That is a business, it's an organization, it's a society, it is a culture, it's something very big.
Huh.
And so that's where you get the leader, the governor, the boss, the manager, who
Ah,
can see from this 50,000-foot view what the
yeah.
Virgos are doing in the bookkeeping department, or the nurses over here, the
Yeah.
teachers. They can also see the Tauruses who are building the things and farming the earth. And they're sort of like, all right, you do that and you do that. And they can do this and then you get at the end of the day, you build a skyscraper, or you build a society, a country.
So what is it is so interesting as you're describing this. I'm thinking about people I know and how I've seen them work in their businesses, right? So one of my first business partners was the Capricorn. And we have teased, she's the one, the goat that was going up the mountain no matter what, right? I have often teased her that she can turn anything into work. Like playing is hard. Everything she ever did became a business and became a revenue producer. Like that woman made money. And I'll give you one of the best examples, which fits exactly with what you're talking about and exactly why this is interesting. She bought we went through a phase somewhere along the way. We were all talking about life balance and we need to have more fun and we need to add more joy into our life. And she bought a horse just to ride because she had ridden horses as a kid and had been around them for a long time. And someone in our network had a horse they were ready to let go. That was beyond breeding and right any of the fancy stuff that you would do with a horse. And she just wanted a pleasure horse, to ride out in the fields, whatever. She bought that horse. One horse wasn't enough because horses are part of a tribe. They need other horses. So she ended up letting somebody else come and keep their horse on her property to keep that one company. And before you knew it, she ended up with three horses. That wasn't enough. She went and got trained as a therapist and equine assisted therapist. That wasn't enough because she wasn't really happy with the standard training everybody was getting, and came up with her own system for how you could work with horses. And before you knew it, she had developed an entire another line of business and was training people around the country in her framework for how to work with horses. And I used to say, I thought you just wanted to go for a ride every now and then.
Well, she can have a free reading with me. Send her my way because I'm fascinated. I want to see her chart. I feel like she's got a Sagittarius midheaven or a ninth house sun or something like that, that
I don't
also
know.
brings in that horse archetype.
Yeah, she is like semi-retired at this point.
Yeah.
This is somebody I've known for a long time. But I have seen this play out. She was a big picture thinker and she took whatever she got into, she definitely evolved it into something like that. That's exactly what happened. And what's interesting about this to me is that which is what I think you teach, is that when you like, don't roll your eyes at this. And there's a lot of math, there's a lot of structure to it. Those of people like you who are trained in this, who are so far beyond anything I even begin to understand, you can read the intricacies and layers of this. There are multiple layers that tell you so much more. But if someone got a reading or worked with an astrologer who knew what they were doing, you could learn so much about this is why you approach business the way you do. This is why your practice is the way it is, because this is how you are hardwired. This is in your DNA or in the stars. And we know that we are made of the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
And
super cool.
Capricorns, they say we're old when we're young and young when we're old. And because that goat comes from the Pan archetype. So you can just look into that and see Pan was a fun guy and kind of also got into some antics. So Capricorns have a lot more going on, but you're right about that fun component that, yeah, work can be fun and fun can be work. And if it ain't fun, we ain't doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So tell me about, so we've got fire, earth. What do you want to do next?
air.
Air. Okay.
So the third sign of the zodiac is Gemini, which is mutable air. So Geminis have lots of different interests. That's where the mutable comes in. Air is intellect. It is communication. And so the most important question you want to ask yourself if you have an air sign rising is, does this give me the intellectual freedom that I need and the freedom to communicate how and what I need to communicate? If not, if I can't say what I need to say, which throat is Taurus, but if I can't say what I need to say, I don't feel safe. If I can't talk to who I need to talk to, if I can't think how I want to think, not how you're making me think, it's not going to work out. So
intellectual freedom and expressive freedom.
Expressive.
Got it.
So I find Geminis often have collections. Gemini, like Virgo, is a Mercury. The planet Mercury's rules and is in charge of Gemini. Mercury was a bit of a trickster. He'd go all over the place. He'd like to walk and do things, but the hands are really good at handling small objects. So you'll find Geminis have libraries and collections. They might put together beaded bracelets, like really small things, or collect stamps. But they might collect languages too. So Gemini or houses or might do more than one thing in their career and have multiple income streams. So you might not know what it is, but that's a fun thing to ask a Gemini is like, what's your thing? What's your library? That's my favorite thing to ask Gemini. And they think everyone has it, and not everybody does. Not everyone has a collection of anything, but
so true.
So Geminis, this next year from May to May of 2025, this is your year because Jupiter, the planet of abundance and blessings, is coming to bless you. So you can see your collection increasing in value maybe this year or becoming of interest. So show off your collection and show off your intellect and your knowledge. Yeah. So
there's a little tip for y'all there.
Yeah,
I think that was a little extra bonus right there.
Yeah. And the stock market financially and in terms of business, anything that has to do with knowledge and communication is going to be big in business for the next year. And any air things are going to be big in business. So air travel. So stocks on things that have to do with air, which also includes internet and technology. Those are the stock prices are going up. So
communication,
having gotten in on the bottom, or if you have a business idea, now's the time to launch it because it will take off.
Interesting.
Libra is the next air sign, and that's cardinal air. And Libra is about the information that is exchanged between two people. It is the seventh sign. And so if you put that on a circle, on a wheel, it's opposite to Aries. Aries is the I and Libra is the we. And so you begin from signs 7 through 12, Libra through Pices, we get into relationship. Signs 1 through 6 are really about the self and the internal and the family. And 7 through 12 are about me with other people. And so Libra is the first of that, me with other people. And what does that mean? That's me with a stranger, me with a non-blood relative, me with my spouse, with my business partner, one-on-one. Libra also ends up being this archetype of the diplomat because they can take what person A says and what person B says, and they can be person C in the middle and be the translator and the
facilitator, mediator. Yeah.
So you'll see them doing marriage and couples counseling, maybe even being mediation, couples counseling, diplomacy, aesthetic things, wedding planning, event planning, arbitrage, things like that is very Libra. And I think the point of it is everyone's got an opinion. And so what you learn as a Libra is to be the oak tree, be the palm tree, the wind, the air. Like they say in Chicago's the windy city, not because of the wind, although it is windy off Lake Michigan. It's because the politics, because the air, the words that are spinning, the things, right? So you want to be like the oak tree with your spine. And like Brown says, soft front, strong back, wild heart. And
soft, say that again?
Soft front, strong back, wild heart. And really have that strong backbone, but have that soft, open front to be vulnerable, let people in, and let their opinions swirl around you. And just know that you are rooted and you are grounded and you are here and you are the solid oak tree that people will gather under. You can sway, but you're going to stand strong at the end of the day.
You can flex, but only so far. Like hold your ground. I'm thinking about, would a Libra business owner, or practice owner, or these you said 1 through 6 are the more about home, family, more the sort of, I'm thinking internal in a way.
Yeah.
And 7 through 12 is more about other people, relationship. Yep. So I'm thinking that those in the 1 through 6, those signs are going to be more comfortable as solopreneurs, right? Or small business, maybe. Is that true? And the other ones would be more like they want to do more with other people, like tend to be more on the extroverted end of things, or is that
So
am I
here's
leaping?
the thing. If you know
Yeah.
the time that you're born and the place that you're born, you get a chart and you put it on a wheel, and it's sort of a wheel with two circles. And so one circle has 12 slices of pie and they're numbered 1 through 12, and we call those houses. And
Hmm.
those always stay. They don't spin. What spins, like the earth like spins, are the zodiac signs, so that
Uh,
we can see what sign aligns with what house, which basically tells us which constellation, which zodiac was rising on the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born, which is your ascendant. Then you get a descendant and a midheaven, which is career, and an imum cheli, which is your home, your roots, your ancestry. And your zodiac sign, if you're born at night, will be at the bottom of the chart. And like your sun will be at the bottom of the chart. And if you were born in the day, your sun will be at the top of the chart. And so that quality of, do I want to be a solarpreneur? Well, if you
yeah.
were born, or most of your planets are between midnight and noon,
Yeah.
you're more introverted.
Ah, interesting.
You want to be alone a little bit, but
Yeah.
you can be an extroverted introvert, which would be being born between sunrise and 2 p.m.
So I have to tell you, as you're talking about this, what's striking me is like, good Lord, this woman knows her stuff. It is, it is real. I can tell, like you're just throwing it out there, and it's fun to watch your face as you're talking, Taylor, because I can tell that you love this, and that it is, like you really know it. It lights you up. You really enjoy it, and you can see so many different aspects of it. And I love that you quickly can think of what this looks like in the business world. Like you're doing that. You're just rattling that off really quickly. So tell me, um, so you already said that a Libra often would be like in the therapy world would be a couples therapist or someone who works with families or something like that. Yeah. What's the other air sign? Gemini, Libra,
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Okay.
So Aquarius is networks. It's the type of communication and expression that's networked. And so that's why Aquarius is often the tribe leader. It's the scientist, it's the person who experiments because they're really curious. And it's a bit more complicated than we have time to explain now, but anyone who's Aquarian, and I say this, they'll relate to it. You have a philanthropic and humanitarian drive to you. You want to make the world a better place and leave it a better place. And the network, one example of that is highways. Highways are a physical network, right? But they bring people together. And we had aqueducts in ancient Rome. Well, Leo, the king, is opposite from Aquarius. The king's works, what he left, were that Aquarius, were the aqueducts, were the roads, were the highways to network, to bring resources to people. So Aquarius is the water bearer, but the water, it's not a water sign, it's an air sign. They're pouring out the waters of knowledge for humanity.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
Aquarians will often be very eccentric. They'll be out of their time, anachronistic. They can be
Hmm.
very from the past, or they can be very ahead of us in the future, which is why they have this individuality to them. But
Really
it's all
unique.
very intellectual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, again, intellectual stimulation and freedom, I think would be important right here. And
Yes.
right. So what would that look like in a business owner? What would be some of if you had strong Aquarian, I'm just going to say if you have Aquarian energy, because the truth is, as I understand it, or my very limited understanding is that there are so many different factors. If you actually do a birth chart, yeah, what you were talking about a minute ago is a birth chart, which shows all of those details. And I have seen my birth chart and others. I don't understand it at all. Of course, it all looks like gobbledygook to me. But if you can, and there are ways, I'm sure you can give us an idea about, there are ways you can go get this for free online if you know what you need to know, where you were born and what time you were born. And if you don't, I think there's a way you can still work around it. Maybe you can speak to that. But what would an Aquarian business owner, small business owner, or healing arts professional be like? What were some of the things you might see?
What I see, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, is we'll have an hour-long session together. And in the last 2 minutes, they go, but I want to save the world and start a philanthropic humanitarian, nonprofit 501c3. Can I do that? And I'm like, why did you wait until the last 2 minutes?
Right.
It's because they're so humble. It's a secret that they have in their heart to keep. They're also
Big
very good with
ideas.
technology. So they're the ones who podcast. They're the ones on AI. They're the ones who have, depending on where it is in your chart, it's going to show up in a different way. But I know someone, Aquarius sixth house, where their employees were like sort of AI tech savvy, sixth house employees. So they can also compartmentalize. An Aquarius moon is going to be the parent who seems really non-emotional to other people around them when they're parenting, and they know because they've already thought 20 steps ahead. This is what the child needs. So they are looking out, and they do care deeply, and they do have feelings and emotions, but it looks very compartmentalized and kind of, other people would describe it as cold. And it's not. It's just very they've intellectualized how to raise a child. So you'll see that in situations where that comes into business somehow, like someone who's maybe their practice is about parenting, right? Or they're working with parents. They can seem very detached and objective.
More business-like, more strategic thinkers, maybe. Okay, interesting. But want to do something big, like want to make a difference. May not, and maybe they don't talk about that, but they really do care and want to make a big difference.
And it could be very unique and experimental. So they could have like an experimental kind of thing. Like I know someone who's Aquarius with Cancer, and he wanted to like grow babies in petri dishes. Like very caring, but in a detached way, because he wanted to like grow them in petri dishes. It's like, okay,
there's a story. Okay.
Yeah.
So last one, water. What are the water signs?
The water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So Cancer is cardinal water. So we're starting it off. So water is emotions. Water is intuition, that feeling that you get, very psychic knowledge, being very in touch on a tangible level. Like fire and air, you can't really, you can touch them, but you can't really touch them. You can touch water, you can touch earth. And so it's this like tangible feeling, but it slips through your fingers at the same time. But so cardinal water, Cancer, is the archetype of the parent, the mother. It's the thing that provides the container, very much in a Taurus way. So I like to think of Cancer as like an Adobe home, almost like this earthen home that you welcome people into. It is like when you see those Virgin Mary sculptures with that shape that's like an oval, right?
Yeah.
That represents the womb and represents, a woman.
Yeah.
That is Cancer, the allowing into a space, this inward movement, the real knowing. The moon is the planet that is in charge of Cancer. And the moon has this memory. The moon is comforting, and memory is essential in learning how to care for a child. You have to remember they're hungry. You have to remember they're cold. You have to remember to pick them up and how to care for them and what to do.
And be intuitive, because they can't always tell you. So you have to feel it and know what they need when they can't tell you. Yeah.
So it's very caring for other people, very nurturing. Can be related to food. You might, if you have a lot of Cancer and you have a practice, wouldn't be surprised if you work with mothers, if you work with young children, wouldn't be surprised at all. Or if you work with food related issues with your clients.
Yeah. Or maybe you make sure you have an office that is more homey.
Yeah. You
where
can
you
have
want
a
to
home office.
Or a home office. Yeah.
This could be something that was passed down. So you're not the first generation therapist. Right. Especially if you have the Sun and Venus together in your chart. It's called a Venus star point. If you have a Cancer Venus star point, which could be 9.5 months before you were born, so you won't really know that, you're in the family business of some sort.
That's funny. Okay. And then
Scorpio is fixed water, which is sort of like the depths of the ocean and ice. If you think about it, it's very intense. It's very deep. It is like the snake slithering over the earth and feeling every grain of sand and every nook and cranny because it's so sensitive. It picks up things that no one else can pick up. So Scorpio will feel deeply, feel intensely, be, I think, the most intuitive, deeply feeling sign. So wouldn't be surprised if your clients who don't open up to you are Scorpios, and the most of your clients are Scorpios. Also because Scorpios get along with Virgos and Cancers really well.
Scorpios align with the 4 on the Enneagram, which are the folks who go deep and dark, right?
Yeah.
I had a colleague one time who used to say that she had Scorpio in 5 placements on her chart, and we didn't even need to know what that meant. We got it.
Yeah.
Because she felt everything so deeply. So these are highly sensitive people.
Yes.
They read everything. They're really tuned into what's going on around them.
And they're researchers. And they're not afraid to go there with the things that are taboo. So if you yourself have a lot of Scorpio placements, intimacy is keeping people's secrets, even like becoming a ghostwriter, maybe something like high profile, clandestine almost, but also doing intense research. So if you're, clinical in some way and you do conduct research, you'd be really good at that. Or you might not be in the clinical setting, but you just like do the research because you can't help yourself. Like it's like, well, what else
people who are really into a new technique, really want to dig into how a new technique might going to help. These would be those folks like lifelong learners who are trying new things all the time. Maybe, yeah.
And money issues,
money issues,
money and sex are really big things, and grief, being a doula, birth, death, grief. These are all Scorpionic topics.
So Scorpio, someone who has a strong Scorpio energy would dive into money issues or sex, the things that everybody has a hard time dealing with or facing. They're like, we're going there. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to pull all this together and talk about this from a high level, from a business perspective, but let's do one more. We've got Pisces.
Yeah. So Pisces is really, like, I think Pisces is even more highly sensitive. Pisces is mutable water. And so they are creative. They're intuitive. If you're a Pisces, you have Pisces in your chart, you're going to have a couple of beverages around you, a water, a tea, a Red Bull, like whatever your fancy is. You might be the bartender therapist or like you might be in substance abuse counseling. You may be in rehabilitation of some sort. You may work in like a rehab facility or a hospital setting, social work, that kind of thing. You might work with refugees as well, or you might be a large animal therapist, like your friend who did the horses and stuff like that. She might have some Sag and some 12th house placements or Pisces placements in her chart.
And beverages or liquid.
Liquid. So like it could even be fishermen, like you just live in a fishing town, and like a lot of your clients, it just depends on your chart specifically how it's going to show up for you, but liquids are a thing.
And the people that I have known who have been Pisces have been very fluid in how their business has evolved over time. And they do tend to be, the few I can think of that I've known, really deep people who kind of like the Scorpios are, but who are adapting and all the time, like sort of their businesses evolve even more in a way that is, I just don't want to say fluid. That's what's come to me. It's like in ways that sort of surprised me. Like I would never have thought of doing that way in your business. Very creative.
They art therapy, music therapy.
So one of my favorite Pisces folks is a really, really good therapist who's developed an entirely new way of working with people. And it is powerful and effective. And I think it's going to change the industry. And just watching where she's gone with that over time has been really delightful, because she has surprised me in the way her business has evolved around the delivery of this new service it's going to change lives. Right. So it's very fluid, and really creative. And that's really super cool. Like I can, as you're describing all of these, I can see people I know that it really fits my sense of them, my feeling about them in a really cool way. Yeah.
Because Pisces is last. So they synthesize everything from the previous 11 zodiac signs, and they are the most mature, and they're preparing for the new cycle. So she is creating something new that then will take off for the next generation.
That is totally a synthesis. In fact, I've talked to her about this, of so many things she's learned throughout her life and so many masters that she's worked with. She has synthesized a ton of information into a whole new way of delivery.
I love it.
That is right on. Like freakish uncanny. Y'all, those of you who are rolling your eyes at this, if I could almost every person, everything she's taught, not all of them, but over half of what Taylor has said today, I can think of a person who describes to a T what she is saying. I
And they
love
just,
that.
they've got it prominent in their chart. Because, like I said, it might not fit you if you're one of the signs that we talked about, but you
Yeah.
probably got something else prominent in your chart that's a different sign that's not your sun sign, and that's okay.
So can you give me an example of, so when you work with people, I'm guessing that you help them understand kind of what their chart is and what that says about their nature and what works best for them. True? Is that right? Do you do that?
Yeah.
I didn't even really ask you much about how you work with people. I should give you a chance to say that. How do you work with people, Taylor?
Yeah. So I have a program that is my signature coaching container program right now, where I teach folks how to use everything from AI to their zodiac sign. I am a certified professional astrologer, and I'm also a regenerative business coach. And so I use not only astrology, but also some other frameworks like permaculture, human design, even sort of biodynamics. And I bring all these things in. And that's my synthesis, because I have some Pisces in my chart too.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
I got Capricorn and Pisces and Scorpio and a bunch of other things in my chart. And so I synthesize it and I bring it all together to really look holistically to help you find, validate, and fulfill your life purpose, your soul's purpose, really feel good about what you're doing in the direction that you're going, and give you the clarity that you need. And I do that in my program. So we've got classes, we've got weekly coaching. And for some folks who want to work one-on-one, I do that and read your chart and provide you with a report. And I even go into, how do you use your astrology chart to brand? What colors should you be choosing for your website and your logo and things like that? So it's really fun.
That's super cool. Just in this conversation with you today, I can certainly get a sense of how much you would bring to the table in a really, really different way. Like for those who are listening, who are kind of wired this way and are kind of like into this, and or at least open to learning more about it, I can see how you would give them, I'm guessing actually affirmation, probably in many ways, of what they already instinctively are doing. And I bet you can help people figure out where this is why this isn't working, because this isn't in alignment with you. So can you give me just one or two kind of examples of where something isn't working? And so all of my people are not therapists necessarily. That is by and large the main audience that I speak to, because that's what my background is. But I've got energy healers and yoga teachers and massage therapists, all types, physical therapists. So, but they're all in some kind of wellness world. They're all people who are trying to help other people have a healthier life one way or another. And they tend to be people who care really, really deeply about their clients and are drawn to this work like a moth to a flame. Like they can't not do this, but struggle often in the delivery of the work because they don't take good care of themselves. They have trouble with boundaries. They don't charge enough for what they do. Or even when they do, they don't collect half the time. Like there's all these like ways that they trip themselves up that are really common in my world, and which none of which I judge, because I've been all of that on steroids. So totally get all that. What, from an astrological perspective, can you give me just one or two examples of how, if this is where your energy really is, or this is what your strong suit is, you may find that you're in trouble if you're not doing this, something like that. Maybe some of the things that you've seen.
Okay. I think it's hard to generalize in that way. And I will answer your question. So I'll also say, my clients we share the same client base, really. Like they're all Virgo people who do these things and encounter these issues, but I'm sure they come to you for a certain issue. They come to me really when what I see very frequently is the universe is telling them, stop. No, it's the end. It's over. Or it's time to begin, or it's time to make a choice. It's time to make a decision. Are we looking at the door that's closed, or are we looking at the door and the opportunities that are open? And how do we have the courage to move forward in that direction? And it's not necessarily zodiac sign, that's when we get a little bit more into the advanced techniques in astrology, where
Yeah.
I look at the relationship of two or more planets to each other in
Yeah.
both your natal chart, your business chart, and then I look at something called the progress chart, which is where we age the chart. So the first 90 days, if you live to be 120, the first 120 days of your life becomes what we call the progress chart. So when you're 30, we would look at the chart for 30 days after you were born. And
Hmm.
and then we would look at the relationship of those planets to each other and those planets to your natal chart. And what's going to happen 30 days later? Well, the moon phase is going to come back to the same, but it's going to be a little different. 45 years later, it's going to be even more different than the moon phase you were born under. If you were born under a full moon and you're in a balsamic moon phase where the moon is becoming new, but it still has light, but it's losing light, you're tired. And so if you don't
Hmm.
know that you're in a progressed balsamic moon phase and something's coming to an end, to answer your question, that's when you're giving all this energy and trying to start something new when you're supposed to be composting. You're supposed to be planting
Uh,
seeds. You're supposed to be
it's not time
reflecting
yet.
and synthesizing,
Yeah.
spending time in nature
Yeah.
and planning and dreaming and not
Hmm.
pushing. But you will very soon want to start something new. So yeah, sure, get a coach, like
Yeah.
figure out, experiment, try things. Just don't expect it to be working right away.
So learning to work with rhythms,
Yes.
understanding the energy, the ebb and flow of energy, and the rhythms that are natural to you. So if you find yourself pushing something and it's just not working and it feels exhausting, there may be a good reason for that. Um, and if you sort of learn to understand that, you'll know when to take action, when to push, when is it time to generate, when is it time to get up off the couch and do something, and when
Yeah.
is it
So
time to go sit in the backyard for a while and think.
yeah.
Yeah,
Knowing your natal and progressed moon phases and then knowing the
yeah,
transits that you're having in your chart as
yeah,
well. So I
yeah,
find there's a time that you're going to become a teacher for people when you have a waning gibbous moon, is that's when you need to teach and take on apprentices. I see people where they do massage therapy, right? And they're in their 50s and their hand or 60s and their
yeah,
hands start to really hurt and they're like, I love this
yes,
work, but I just can't do it. Well, let's figure out a way for you to monetize so that you can do it when you can and it's healthy for you and you're
yeah,
still getting your bills paid. So how can we bring on apprentices? How can we bring on more people? How can we help you to do an online class if that feels okay to you,
yeah,
or something, another income stream so that you can get your needs met? The other thing is transits that would happen. So if Jupiter is coming to your midheaven, this is a big career moment. If Saturn's coming to your IC, you're ending a career cycle. So there's lots of things that we can look at by transit. If Pluto's
goodness,
coming to your sun, you're sort of like going through this, your life. I don't want to say self-immolating because it sounds very scary, but
a
like
little
you're going,
dramatic.
I call it a glow up. I had Pluto on my sun recently. I think it's the biggest glow up that you can have in your life, but
Oh
it
my
can
goodness.
be scary when everything ends and then needs to start over again, like the
Yeah,
Phoenix.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are the moments that actually oftentimes lead to the biggest changes in the best ways, but it sure doesn't feel like that when you're in the middle of it, does it? Yeah,
Right.
been through a few of those myself. Taylor, this has been so interesting. It's like you've gone so much deeper than I was even thinking we would go. And I will say this is probably the longest episode I've done because this is a topic that is so juicy. There's just so much to understand about it. So tell me, for people who want to know more, want to learn more, want to hear more about what you have to offer, what's the best way for them to find you? Where do they go to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me at my website, taylorshuler.com, TAYLORSHULER. There's no C in Schuler, or at cosmiccareerclarity.com. And I always have a freebie up there. I cannot promise you what it is, but it's probably something about finding and fulfilling your purpose, or, the 10-step roadmap to building your business and finding your purpose and fulfilling it through your business. So I'm sure it's fun and I'm sure it's free. And you can go on my website, sign up for my newsletter, and you will get it in your
There you
inbox.
go. There
Yeah.
you go. TaylorShuler.com. That's the one that's the easiest to remember. Awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. I hope you guys will go check her out and reach out to her if you're interested, perhaps in a consult or to learn more about her services and her program, because something tells me it would be sort of, I said illuminating at the beginning, eye opening, illuminating. Yeah. So, Taylor, before we close this, I always like to ask everybody, we've covered a lot of ground, right? quickly too. I feel like we've gotten like 6 months worth of primer in an hour and a little over an hour. Is there anything that I haven't asked you, anything that you feel called to share, anything that you want to say that would make this conversation complete?
I would say to remember that you are divinely and perfectly made, and you are unique. You came here for a purpose. You have a purpose, and don't forget it, because, and not that I want to leave with a little guilt, but if anyone needs a little inspiration through guilt, don't steal your gifts from us, right? Let us see you shine. Let us bask in your talents and your skills. We need you to do what you do. And so please go out there, connect with Wendy, connect with me, connect with yourself, with nature. Be who you are, uniquely you, and you will thrive.
You will thrive. Beautiful. Thank you, Taylor. That is perfect. It's a perfect way to end this. So guys, listen to what she said. Listen to what she said. Tap into your true nature. I would say give yourself permission to be who you really are and figure out how to run your business in a way that suits who you are. That's what an ideal practice is. All right, everyone, that's enough for today. I think we could talk about this for hours, but I won't. And interestingly enough, my clock says 4:44. Perfect. All right, everyone, have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful week. And I will see you next time right here on the Ideal Practice Podcast. Bye now. Hey, y'all. If this program has become important to you, if ideal practice matters, it would mean so much to me if you'd be willing to take just a minute to do one or two of the following things. First of all, would you follow or subscribe to the show here at Ideal Practice? Following me helps you because you'll never miss an episode, but it helps me as well for all kinds of reasons. To do that, all you have to do is go to the show page for Ideal Practice on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. There, just click on the plus sign that you'll usually find in the top right-hand corner, or click on the word follow that you're going to find somewhere there on that page. Of all the things, this really is the most important thing you can do for the podcast itself. While you're there, it would be extra special if you would be willing to give me a 5-star rating, and even better than that, a review with your own words. Your words matter. And when you write what you feel, what you think, you uplift and encourage others. And I love that. If you want to go a step further than that, take your favorite episode or two, one of the ones that has meant a lot to you, and share it with a friend. Could you do one or two of those things for me? I promise I will love you forever. You guys matter to me, and I value your support more than I can possibly say. Thank you, sweet friend, for anything you can do to help me out and support the show. I'll see you again soon.